What an amazing audience and what an amazing venue. This is great. I think we are the last session before lunch, so hopefully we are keeping it, going to keep it entertaining and informative. Thank you for the time, Sandhya. We've known each other for a while, and it's a real pleasure to host you here. The topic is, what would India do in AI? I think it's a vast topic. We have a few questions that we will start off with. One of the first things I wanted to start with is what's on everybody's mind, DeepSeek. It's a single, small, relatively unknown company out of China that has caused havoc both in Chinese public markets and US public markets. I'm sure for a while, when the AI revolution was starting, the open source models were in performance lower than closed source models. And for the very first time, we finally see an open source model outperforming all the other closed source models. And you folks are really have been the biggest proponents of open source models from the very beginning. What is Meta's plans around Llama? What is your thoughts on DeepSeek?
Okay. Good to be here. Thanks, Hemant, for the question. And good to be back on stage and feeling the energy of the Mumbai Tech Week. Before I answer your question on DeepSeek, I think I want to start with what you ended with, which is open source and Llama and what's our philosophy there. And I think I want to take a minute to talk about our philosophy, which is really embedded in our conviction on open source. Right? And this has been something we've done as a company for a very long time. In fact, when we started our AI efforts, since we started our AI efforts in terms of FAIR, which is our fundamental AI research lab, I think we've released more than 1,000 data sets and models, because that's how closely we work with developers, with academia, with universities on things that we could be doing in the open source world. And it comes back down to why we invest so deeply, heavily in open source, which is we believe that it makes products faster to market, it's a safer way of innovating, and over time, things just get better if it's open source. So let me give you an example. When we all started, at least I'm dating myself here, and probably dating you as well, Hemant. Unix used to be the de facto standard. Companies used to spend a ton of money. I remember all the courses that I did on understanding how to program in Unix, all of that. But then came along Linux, which started off very much as an open source project. And over time, what it did was developers started to work with it because it was cheaper, it was open source. Soon enterprises as well started to work with Linux because it was just a better, safer option. And over time, it just got much stronger. So what you see with open source, and we've seen that again play out with PyTorch, which is something that Meta pioneered in terms of what we did with AI, and sort of PyTorch is our open source contribution there as well. So I would say that open source actually makes it possible to drive faster innovation, and that's been our endeavor with Llama, which is we looked at Llama as an open source model when we released it, and our ambition there, coming to your question very specifically on DeepSeek, was with Llama 3, when we launched Llama 3, we wanted it to be on par with other models, be as competitive as other performance model in terms of performance as other models. We wanted to show that open source could do that, and that was our effort with Llama 3. With Llama 4, which we will be launching soon, our ambition is really to lead with open source. So that will be multimodal, that will be omni-modal, and it will also have agentic capabilities, AI capabilities. So we're very excited about that. And I think if you look at it, at any one point in time, there may be one model leading the other. But I think we're here to play the long game on AI. We've been doing that for a while. And we think over a period of time, our continued commitment to open source, our investments in the space, will bode well for us.
Awesome. I have a side question on DeepSeek as well. So when this model came out, nobody was expecting it to work the way it did. I was quite shocked that a company with so little resources and so few people would just come out with something that would beat every other company out there. And I also see that it has lended a lot of velocity to companies like Meta. What was, when this model launched, what was the internal environment at Meta? What was the internal discussion? It felt like you guys have begun to launch a lot more quickly, Looks like the new models are coming out faster. Tell us more about, has that led to some sort of internal acceleration or urgency more than before? And also, what should we expect coming out of Llama models in the next few months or quarters?
So I go back to what we talked about, right? So our roadmap hasn't changed in terms of what we're hoping to do, which is, with Llama 4, we really want to lead in the industry on AI in terms of, all the things that I mentioned, right? It'll be multimodal, it will be omni-model, and it'll also have agentic AI capabilities, which we think will set us up well. But overall, I think Mark's talked about this, which he's talked about this year being a year of intense focus for us as a company.
He's back in founder mode is what we hear. Absolutely.
But I think that is just, with the excitement that he feels about AI and how transformative AI can be.
Yeah.
And, we've felt that I've worked in this company for now nearly 10 years, and every year feels intense.
Yeah.
And this year more so because of our ambitions in AI. So it's very much an internal lens for us.
Yeah.
I don't think it's predicated by anyone else. It's about what we want to achieve in the space, and I've articulated that.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. I remember when I was at Google many, many years back, and now I'm seeing Sergey Brin in a bunch of these hackathons, in his shorts and his sandals, and then when you see founders like that come out of the woodwork and really participating in the ground game, you feel like, yeah, you're really sort of, there's a lot of urgency in their own minds, and I see that with your strategies as well. Now, in our business, in the venture business, people say, well, if you have, if you really believe in something, you should put your money where your mouth is, and it does look like Meta is doing that. They are spending, $60–70 billion every year in CapEx. And I think I don't remember the exact specifics, but maybe hundreds of billions of dollars over the next couple of years. Give us some color of what's causing this massive surge in CapEx across the industry, especially the big companies like Google, Meta, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft. What's causing it? And if you can also talk about what are your plans for this region in India, Southeast Asia, what of that goodness is going to come here? And then we'll talk about use cases and upside that are available to us.
So Hemant, I think in terms of just the investments, we have announced massive investments this year in the on AI infrastructure, as you pointed out. But I think it goes back to our larger, commitment on AI, right? So in terms of what we see as investments that we need to make. But before I go there, I want to talk a little bit about how we're thinking about AI overall on our platforms, right? So one, if you see users, right? We launched Meta AI in India last year. And since then, Mark talked about this recently, we have around 700 million users globally who are using Meta AI through either WhatsApp, through Instagram, through our family of apps, and are finding value from it. In fact, I talk about this often, but I'm always amazed by the use cases that I see of Meta AI and how Indians are taking to Meta AI. Just this morning, when I was with somebody who was I was getting my hair done, and she said that she uses Meta AI every day for makeup captions that she does. She's like, it's in the app, it's on WhatsApp, I want to get something done very quickly, and I find Meta, and I don't have time to download all the other apps, and I use it constantly, and it's been a big boon for my small business. And I think that's the kind of user experiences that we want to create, which is native. You're on the platform, and Meta AI, which is, sort of supports you with whatever that you need to do. I always talk about this young mom from Varanasi who uses Meta AI when we were doing a product immersion, using Meta AI to teach her kid, through what she'd learned on WhatsApp. So I think that's one place where we see, Meta AI getting more and more useful to users, getting stronger, and that's definitely a place where our investments are going. The second is just for lots of businesses that are using us, right? So on small businesses that use us today, we want to we don't want them to spend their time thinking about what ad is likely to work on WhatsApp, right? Or on Instagram or on Facebook. We want to give them the tools that helps take away that tedium because they're not the experts on it. And what we've found is since we've launched a lot of our creative AI tools for advertisers. 4 million advertisers have used it already. I think we've already done some 15 million ads which were generated using these. So that has also taken on momentum, and that's another area where we're investing, which is even the same for creators with Creator AI Studio. Slightly long answer, but bear with me. So there's users, there's small businesses. Then we think about large businesses, enterprises on our platform. How do we optimize the dollars they're spending on us? Dream 11 is in the audience, and Dream 11 is also, very involved with Mumbai Tech Week. They saw a 12% reduction in their costs when they started using our AI-powered ad optimizer tools. So that's another area. So if you think about it, there's users, there's businesses, then there's developers and startups with Llama. All the work that we're doing on Llama, which is open source, benefits companies large and small, but especially developers and startups who don't want to put that kind of investments, but want to get all the benefit and the magic of AI.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a quick audience question. How many, raise your hands if you're a developer? Okay, there's a good number of developers. Awesome. I'm sure you've heard of Cursor, Vercel. Yeah? No? Yes? Okay, very few hands. You should know about Cursor. I'm reading an internal Slack from one of our company CTOs, the fastest growing company in our portfolio globally, and I'm quoting it verbatim. Vercel plus Cursor have us moving 5x faster, no exaggeration. These tools are actually having some pretty massive impact on productivity of employees and consumers. So I'm curious, as we move into a series of questions about use cases of AI, because it keeps coming up. Internally, I'm sure big and small companies are moving much faster. Where do you see in your software, internal software suite, AI being used? How is it being used? And what has the impact been so far?
So in fact, there as well, for a lot of our AI prediction models and things like that, what we found is AI has made our algorithms that much stronger, that much more nuanced and powerful. So that's one way where we use and deploy AI, and that's not new. We've been doing that for a long time. It's just gotten a lot more powerful with the investments that we made in Llama and in recent times, which is the progress that we've seen in the field overall. We also have something called Code Llama, which engineers at Meta use as well to actually
that's your
help
internal
them
version
it's
of
like a co-pilot on code,
yeah.
And we've seen success there, and I think a lot of companies in the room may have also seen success with whatever versions of code co-pilots that they're using. So that's definitely an area where we're using. We use AI a lot to keep people safe on our platforms, to take down content which may cause harm in the real world. So we've sort of deployed AI across the board, but specifically, I think the bit that I talked about on Code Llama would be one which is of recent times. The other bit that I would say is that it's just even in the work that we're doing with businesses that use our platform, having AI, Gen AI tools has made a pretty big difference as well. That's so awesome. We learn from that all the time and think about how to deploy it internally too.
Yeah, we keep doing like a quick CTO survey for our companies. In fact, the ones that are growing the fastest, moving the fastest are the ones that are using AI, almost dogfooding their own services internally, but also using ton and ton of AI tools. Cursor.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is that as more and more people use it, especially open source models like ours, I think we've had 800 million downloads of Llama so far, and there's been some 20K derivative models. It's just making the whole ecosystem better and faster. So it's not, Mark also talks about this. It just helps us as well as we build models on Llama.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, now let's talk about the promise of AI. We got hundreds of billions of dollars getting spent on AI. NVIDIA had their annual, quarterly report, or was it annual maybe? Yesterday night, and they reported $39 billion of revenue, out of which 35 or 36 billion was pure data center spend. So clearly they're making a ton of money. You guys are spending a ton of money. Everybody else, big and small, is spending a lot of money. Where is this going to go? We as VCs think about a lot of that, right? I mean, we spend a lot of money on our companies, invest in them. And the question that people ask us is, well, at the end of this rainbow, there has to be a pot of gold. And that, to me, essentially is agentic systems that do things for you, productivity tools that allow you to do more things better, faster. What are you seeing in terms of end user use cases where you see there is a mass deployment that has been taken up and is actually having a really big impact? And then part of that question also is like India, right? What is it that you're going to think about differently for India prices are different, costs are different, use cases are different, languages are different. How should we think about applications, globally, AI, where are you seeing impact? And you guys have the best view of the world from a distribution point of view, and specific to India, what are your plans?
So I think for us, I sort of articulated it a little bit, but I'll make it crisper and say that again. So I think if one, at a user lens, if you're a user of our platforms, we want AI to make that experience that much more useful for you. So be it Meta AI, where we're continually investing in. We've also talked about small businesses having the power of agentic AI, right? Like having potentially AI agents that will send messages for them, that will help them, deepen a sales process while if they're busy doing something else and they can't attend to their WhatsApp. So there's things that we're doing on the user and the business side. But there's also on the creator side, and India is particularly pertinent to India. We have 100 million creators, if based on some survey that I saw that I'd read, and all of them would love tools that make it easier for them to create on our platform. So those are some places where we look at AI, as something that's where we think it'll go in terms of just making experiences a lot more seamless and more useful. Definitely AI agents is another place where we will be investing, especially I think will have a particular importance on Instagram and our Facebook Messenger as well as on WhatsApp, because I think that there it's a conversation. Yeah. So that's one part. I want to talk about what you just said about what am I seeing in India, right? With Llama, and I talked about the 800 million downloads, but India is one of the top markets for Llama, and this is a portfolio company of yours, Sarvam, right? Where we've worked with Sarvam, they've taken Llama and they built on top of that to actually support Indic languages. They just launched Sukha, which then takes audio tokens, uses Llama, converts that into text, and I think in 10 Indian languages. So we're seeing really good use cases of companies like Sarvam taking Llama and sort of customizing it for Indian needs, right? So that's one thing that I do want to talk about. We're seeing a lot of users in healthcare, in education, where people are agriculture, where people are building off of Llama. So Kisan AI is one such example. There's healthcare. We've seen RAD GPT, which does work on oncology based on Llama. So we're seeing a lot of examples where people are actually building on top of Llama for specific use cases. I was in Bangalore last week, and we partnered with Nudge to launch their next cohort on a program we run jointly called Pragati. And this time round, we've made it focused on AI for social impact. So I'm really excited about some of the use cases we saw there as well, which is everything from cases in short-circuiting legal cases to healthcare to education. So I think the opportunity for India is immense, and I'm really excited about how people are building off on top of Llama.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we have so many ideas, and we see so many things coming out of the woodworks as a VC. There's a lot going on in India for India.
Hemant, you have to leave me time to ask you questions. We said it'd be conversation, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have one last question for you, though. AI safety comes up a lot, and I think the more important open source becomes, and I do believe it is going to be where a lot more of the path-breaking innovation is going to come from, now that DeepSeek has proven that you don't need to spend billions of dollars anymore to be able to build a frontier model. And how they did it, that's a separate topic, but now they have done it and it's open sourced it, more people are going to start to do it. And we're going to start to see a bunch of efforts coming out of India, other parts of the world that are going to be very competitive to the best models out there. It's a great thing and a challenging thing as well. But open source is hard to control. There is no company you can go and shut down when they do something bad with their AI models. AI safety, AI alignment, or what alignment means for folks that are not familiar, is it aligned to human values? If you get let's say on a train track, 2 humans and 3 humans, but the 2 humans are good and the 3 humans are criminals, wouldn't AI choose to kill the 3 humans and save the 2? Or is it going to choose 2 is better number to kill than 3 because 3 is higher than 2? It's something that's called AI alignment, right? How do you think about these issues at Meta, and what do you think are the challenges ahead of us?
Look, this is something that we take super seriously because this is something that's also close to our hearts. And we spend a lot of the investments that we make are also around keeping people safe on our platforms. And definitely, the investments we're making in AI also includes investments that we're making in safety. So let me take you through some of the ways we're thinking about it, right? One is just in terms of when we launch products, we now have an AI governance, function. There's a governance process as well, which is on top of what we do, which is privacy reviews. So we usually do privacy reviews before we launch products. So now we also have an additional layer of looking at AI governance to make sure whatever we're putting out there, is safe and has the safeguards that we need. The second is we invest a lot in things like red teaming, right? And we also release tools to the developer community where they can also sort of take Llama and apply the safeguards that the other tools that we launch publicly to help with safeguards when they launch their own products.
And do you think there are some India-specific things you have to do because language and like biases are very different here and cultural norms are very different here? What are the efforts you're doing here?
So we'll talk about that as well. So for example, I think it'll best be described by when we launched Meta AI, right? So when we launched Meta AI, we did a ton of testing to make sure that the model wasn't generating harmful content, was behaving in the way it was supposed to do, because we were releasing it to hundreds of millions, billions of users across the world, right? So we went through a deep process of actually, putting in, right from the time we conceptualized it to the time that we launched it, a lot of thinking, testing, governance around when we launched Meta AI. The second thing that we did was we actually looked at multiple language outputs to see also, whether we were ready to launch in those languages. The third thing that we did was, Meta AI now, sometimes it's thinking and it suppresses, and there are things that doesn't even show up if you ask a question. So we've done both, which is if you ask a question and, it's not a question that you want Meta AI to answer in terms of it's a harmful, it could lead to real world harm. Yeah. It suppresses it at the time of a model output. Otherwise, it does it after. The last thing we've done on Meta AI is we allow you to give feedback, user feedback. And we take that seriously because, see, no model is perfect. No output will be perfect. So we take a lot of user feedback as well on the outputs that Meta AI is generating in and making it better and safer. So that's on how we thought about Meta AI. I will say this is a team sport in terms of everybody coming together. So we're also part of international associations. So for example, watermarking, AI, synthetic content, whether it's visible or whether it's not, those are things that, we become part of industry efforts, and we take that also very seriously.
Yeah, this is so critical because I feel like solving for what is real and what is not real, I think it's a $10 billion idea that nobody has figured out how to do it right. If a company is able to figure out, just looking at an audio sample or a video sample or a text, that this is generated via AI versus generated by a human, I think that's a massive company in terms of fake detection and things like that. So it's a huge opportunity and a huge
and those are industry partnerships as well in terms of governance standards and things like that. So I think across the spectrum, both internally and externally, we're trying to do our best to make sure it's safe.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great.
I have now questions to ask of you, unless you have more questions to ask.
No, I'm good.
Because we thought we'd make this a conversation because Hemant comes with so much experience at Lightspeed, sort of investing in startups across the globe. So I didn't want to miss the opportunity to also ask Hemant some questions.
Yeah, I'm very happy to.
So he started with DeepSeek. So I'm going to start with also an equally, tough question for you, Hemant. Some time ago, Hemant, talked about how India should not invest in its own large language model, but instead use open source models that are available and build on top of them. Now, based on all the evolution that you've seen in the last few years in this industry, does your view remain the same? Has anything changed?
No, I think the view is still the same. I think the world has certainly changed. So I would say it's more adjusted versus a fresh outlook of the opinion I had. And just for the folks that don't know this, I said that India should try to win battles that we can win. Now, as investors, we are investors in Anthropic. We investors in XAI, Elon Musk's company. We investors in Mistral in Europe, and we investors in Stability in the US. We investors in Sarvam in India. These are all foundation model companies. But it is also very obvious to us, funds like us that have invested in this category, is that the lower down the stack you go, the more commoditized the things you do are going to become. 2 years ago, foundation models were new and a lot of growth was ahead of them in terms of performance and quality. Now, these things tend to look like an asymptote, and it's very hard to get to the last inch of the asymptote. It takes a lot more money, a lot more time, a lot more effort, but that's where the value ends up accreting to. But the rest of it becomes fairly commoditized. A model that is built on 2 years of internet data, 6 months later, the data is completely different, so it will not answer the questions that are very current. So what's the use of the model? So these are games that I think, in a commodity business, price matters the most. Performance does not matter the most. And who can drive price? People who have a lot of cash balance, Apples, Metas, Facebook, Googles, and Amazons of the world, or people that have raised a lot of money. In the commodity market, the bigger the player is, the bigger they become, because price matters more. And to the extent that this was the game that was being played, which was still true 3 months ago, there was no reason to build another foundation model company because you would have to raise $1 billion and spend $1 billion, and still you may end up with a model that can be surpassed by a DeepSeek. So I'm actually very glad that India did not spend billions of dollars of capital that we don't have. That's not the best place to put it. Today, with DeepSeek, open source model, I think we should and we will, and we are building models that are built on top of DeepSeek or Llama or other open source models that will go. So I think it's a game that we now can actually go play and win, and we should.
Obviously, we've been big proponents of open source as Meta. I think one of the things that I've found really amazing to watch is companies like Sarvam and Kisan AI and a whole bunch of others actually build on top of Llama very quickly and go to market, but make it their own, so fully customize it for India's needs. In fact, we launched a skill bot with the Ministry of Skill and Development, that was also built off of Llama, which talks about, and this is my next question to you, which is making available, the opportunities that are there in AI, how people can upskill themselves, and what they could do. So I think my next question to you is around skilling in AI. We've been trying to do our bit. We partnered with NASSCOM to train 420,000 people, and become more AI literate. But I think there's obviously plenty more, that can be done. Do you have some thoughts around overall, AI in India as it relates to skilling?
Yeah, I think we don't have a choice, by the way. Just about a couple of weeks ago, I downloaded this data set from I forget the website, but it had basically 250,000 developer surveys. And I kind of drew a bunch of these KDE plots, and what I found out was that developers from all over the world, plotted by a number of years of experience, you see India actually the plot was like this. For the majority of the people, spiked at 2 to 3 years of experience. And then there was a long tail of people that had 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experience. Look at the same data for the US, it would peak at roughly 5 or 6 and would have a very fat tail. Then a bunch of people had 7, 10, 20, 15, 20 years of experience. India had a very spiky slope. It went up really quickly to 2, and 95% of people that are developers in India, 90% maybe, are under 5 years of experience. And then you can imagine that's the sort of work that is going to get automated away. It's not the really experienced people that are building very specialized code. It's the 2-year-old graduate student without a master's or a PhD, not doing very cutting-edge stuff. That's the first thing that's going to be automated away by AI. And the same could be true for design experienced people. Same could be true for people working in call centers, where audio AI can come and do the basic, sir, what do you need, madam, what do you need, and oh, here's the answer to your question. Right? They cannot hold long conversations, but that's the work that's going to get automated away. So I don't think we have a choice. In the next 5 to 10 years, when these waves come, there's a displacement in job markets where new jobs get created through technologies like AI, and old jobs get disseminated completely. And those who are late to this will get very disillusioned very quickly. So we don't have a choice. We should think about reskilling all the way from high school students to college students, change coursework, make it more relevant for what the world is going to look like in 5 years from now. I think it's a massive issue for us that India is going to face a lot more off than, let's say, a developed market like Europe or US.
And that's something we've also sort of spent time investing in skilling. Like I said, NASCOM, definitely. So I hear you on that being an opportunity that we'll have to seize and look at. My last question for you is, in your role at Lightspeed, you lead a lot of the investments that we make in the country. And Lightspeed's also done, significant investments globally as well. So what are the sectors or areas you're focused in on AI right here? Talk to me a little bit about your philosophy on your AI investments, and also what are you most excited about when you look at a company to invest in? Like, what excites you?
Yeah, so look, in AI today, it's a bimodal strategy for investments. It is very clear to the very left of this, there are things like data centers, power, chip companies, foundation model companies, and so on, right? It's hard to do, takes a lot of capex, but it's clear who the winners are. So we as investors, we have invested in power companies like fusion power companies in US, fusion power companies in Europe, and we have invested in ASIC companies across the world. We have invested in foundation model companies that I talked about. This part of the investment circuit is easy to understand. It's just very hard to invest because they take a lot more money because it's getting more commoditized today. On the extreme right are consulting firms. One of the largest companies that have made a lot of money in AI is PricewaterhouseCoopers. They have made about $1.5 billion last year on pure AI consulting. So there's real revenue there on the other side. So left is this, and right is that. Left is investable, but very hard to get in unless you're a really large fund like Lightspeed. And right is, basically large companies like Accenture and Capgemini and PwC. They are not venture and backable today. In the middle is everybody else. The middleware companies, the application companies, horizontal applications like a bridge, or vertical applications like Suno or Pika, or InVideo out of India. So we have basically placed our investments across the stack. We made about 75 odd AI investments just last year alone. We did 6 deals in the last month. Majority of them were AI-related investments. So we've been fairly active. We see everything, but the investment strategy is different for a different part of the segment, and the difficulty is more towards the application layer because there are so many applications. It's very hard to understand and know which companies are going to be the breakout companies. Anybody who tells you they are very clear is basically fooling themselves. So we have to be very careful, back the best founders, the best technologies, and sometimes we wait for the breakout winners to emerge. Sometimes we just don't wait, and we just feel like this is the founder we want to be in business with, and we come in very early.
Awesome. Thank you. That was great.
Thank you for the questions. Yeah, real pleasure, and thank you for all the partnership you've done with us, and look forward to speaking more over in the future.
Yes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hemant.